Racefan Okangu Samasu, welcome to the beautiful circuit of Suzuka for round 2 of our RaceFace.Pro series, proudly powered by EG Evolved. My name is Stephen Koenig, and welcome race fans to such an amazing, historical circuit. Opened in 1962, 63 years ago, the circuit has turned heads from Super Formula to our Super GT cars. It's been the host of multiple endurances. It has been the host to some of the most iconic races and infamous moments in motorsport history. The track is 18 turns of absolute chaos, where it relies on pure rhythm to keep you going. It's easy to get to grips with the circuit, but it is difficult to master and favors the brave, especially heading into the famous 130R and some hard braking zones into the spoon, which if you go a little too slow, you keep too tight, you will lose out some time. This 5.8 kilometer circuit is home to our second round of the series, and we have started with our qualifying. And it looks like we were started with our qualifying, as needed to restart the server by the looks of it. We'll try and get back into it and figure out what is going on there. But ideally, a massive welcome to everyone. It's absolutely incredible to have you guys here on such a great evening with some incredible battles for the championship on who's going to be able to stand at the top. Now, as we are getting our racing sorted out and going through a couple of work on the server to try and get drivers up into it, we got Christoph Peterson currently leading out the championship with Bagor Krobler in second place. Daniel de Villiers in third. Jason Farmer in fourth place. In fifth place is Kieran Patterson, who unfortunately landed up crashing on the last lap, 3 corners from the end in round 1. And he's getting chased by his own father, Alan Patterson, in 6th. Michael Schultz holds on 7th. Keegan Bowen in 8th. 9th is Jackie Alberts, and Johan Delfenko goes and rounds out our Pro division as it stands. Taking a look at our Pro-Am, it's Martin Rotenbach, followed by Sean Lorero, Johan Verveers, Herman Whipner, Anton Lummers, Conrad Martin, Gavin Scruton, Henny Porchita, Rian van der Reest, and Riley Henning rounds out our top 10 for our Pro-Am division. And it is going to be a wild race indeed. Well, we're just waiting for the servers to come live yet again, and there's a bit of work being done in the background as our drivers will be prepped to go out onto the circuit to have some fun here at Suzuka for round 2 of the EG Evolved RaceFace.Pro GT3 Championship Season 24. And also to take a look over to our virtual grandstands, as we got some amazing people joining us there. Reginald Mutaleni, one of our top runners, unfortunately didn't quite have the easiest of times last in round 1, but he's hoping to make that work out for him come round 2, racing in the Pro-Am division. And after being on the podium last season, he's going to be aiming for a great drive nonetheless. So we are just keeping an eye on when these servers are to go live. And we will be returning in with our racing action in a very short moment. Apologies for the delay. And we'll get back into the world of things in just a moment. So we'll be right back. And we are back as we're getting ready to go underway for qualifying very, very shortly. Sorry for the delay, as a couple of drivers needed to get sorted out. We did find out that there was a few chaos moments coming into play, and that is because there has been some car changes. So, that being said, it does bring a little bit of an issue for the championship as we head over towards our qualifying. And it's Darius who's leading out the championship, who is now going to be running in a BMW versus the Honda he was originally in. So change up in vehicle, trying to see if that's going to help him out this season. However, going to be taking a bit of a hit in the points there and taking a bit of a gamble. So, as we're underway with our qualifying and drivers getting themselves out on circuit, take a look over to our virtual grandstands. We have got Reginald Mutalini, and along with Yuppie Simons going and saying hello, hello, hello. Yuppie Simons, after having a good run in round 1 for the LMU, unfortunately missing out round 2, but got to support his team, will be now keeping an eye to the world of ACC. And we'll see likes of Quan Duplessis currently out in the Audi, trying to push himself that little bit further up in the order. Didn't have the best of runs in round 1. He's hoping that round 2 is going to be a little bit different for him. And Conrad Martin also looking to try and improve on his run. Will be thinking, okay, what do I need to do to make this work? How am I going to move my way up in the order? Coming off after last night's LMU race in the GT3 class, he's hoping to make it come together here at the beautiful Suzuka. And we're just trying to get our camera system to get back up and going. That seems to also now decided to go on the fritz after the restart. There we go. Alright, so Conrad Martin out for the Pro-Ams. Henry Platt is running in third at the moment with Jared Bakum of Team Wolf out on the circuit. He's got Jaco Nadir for a bit of company. The Jax KSR team looking to really lay in the pressure to the rest of the drivers, hoping to have a better run than what he had last. Chris Heineke a little bit further down the order for Team GSRT is hoping that the Porsche naturally is a quicker car around Suzuka, having some great rotation. He's going to be hoping to utilize that here tonight to fight up for our Pro Division, as we do have a little bit of a slowdown as drivers start to prepare their lap. Carl Williams of Rapid Recon Racing going to be first to try and slow the pace down, get himself sorted. He does see one of our cars stranded out on the outside, a bit of a weird one to go and spin out, but cold tires does make life rather interesting. You've got to be so careful around this circuit. 17 degrees track temperature, 13 degrees air temperature here this evening for our drivers in both the Pro and Pro-Am division, as they look to try and figure out what is going to be the game plan and where are they going to get that little bit more of a drive to stay towards the top. Who's going to be able to fight their way through? Now, we did talk about Christoph Peterson, and he actually is in the Honda. He's not in the BMW, so apologies on that little bit of information. Quan Duplessis putting the first time on the board, and that is a 159.090. Henry Platt up into second place. Martin Roterbach goes and beats him out, gets himself into second, and clearing some of the traffic on the way through. Conrad Martin puts time on the board, but Jared Bakum unfortunately gets a track limit, and that takes his time off the board. Chris Biermeister goes and puts himself up towards the top. Sorry, that is Darius, who's out in the BMW. So he's changed away from the Honda. He's gone to the BMW to see the difference in the car. And he's hoping that it's going to give him that little bit more of a run. Unfortunately, will be taking a hit in the points. Daniel de Villiers out there in the Nissan GTR now looks to try and step up the game, push himself that little bit harder. He's joined right behind him by the likes of Kieran Patterson, who will be hoping to make his way up through the order. Let's see if he can take on the fight. So, a couple of cars, no times on the board at the moment. Likes Savesh Basson has not been able to put a time as yet. He's going to be hoping to make it work. Christoph Peterson out in the Honda. Beats out the likes of Quan Duplessis with a 158.6 at the moment. Duplessis sits in second place. De Villiers in third. Darius down into fourth place with Herman Whipner now trying to close up the gap. Darius, who is going to be seeing how far he can go up the road. Herman Whipner down in that fifth place, and second in the Pro-Am division. Martin Rotenbach is up into sixth and third in class. Team HSC, as he tries to carry on the momentum. We do see Bago Krobler puts himself up for the Team Wolf into third place, and will be trying to carry a lot of momentum here for the pro field. Duplessis a 158.5 when he comes through, and that is an absolute stellar time. 0.097 separating himself and Christoph Peterson at the moment. But all can change because Christoph is on a heck of a run. He's 0.5 up on his sectors and looking to try and put in a great time. Possibly to get the car down to a 157 around the circuit. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, Suzuka is proudly hosted by Honda Motorsport for many, many years. It has been one of the staples there. And with major investment from Honda, they're now trying to see if Christoph Peterson can take this Honda NSX and put himself onto the podium, with the likes of Duplessis putting in a spectacular time as he makes his way around the final corner. Absolutely flat out through the right-hander, keeps it close to the wall to try and cut down the time. And he does come across the line with a 158.0. So close to getting it into the 57s and managing just to beat out Duplessis by 0.4 of a second. Darius holds on to fifth. Yaku Nadir now down in seventh position, second in class. Will be looking to start next to Bago Krobler, but that Mustang looking a little bit wild underneath him. He's got Ruud Heineke for a bit of company, chasing down Martin Rotenbach and Chris Heineke rounding out our top 10. But there is a still solid amount of drivers. Sean Larrera, Jackie Albers, and the likes of Graham Kelly, Waylon Johnson, Darren Miller, the likes of Kieran Patterson and Carl Williams, John Van Zale, Farquhar Minion, and the likes of Ram van der Race still yet to put a good time on the board to be able to take the fight to the sharp end of the field. Darius carrying a lot of momentum through 130R in the BMW. A little bit different to his usual cars that he sticks around with. Usually plays with the likes of a Nissan GTR, a Ferrari 296, but testing his luck with the BMW this time round in the Pro-Am division. He does come across the line, unable to improve. Bago Krobler in 7th position will look to try and gain as much time as possible to stay in for the fight. A championship fight, might I add, as he currently holds on to 3rd place. Behind him, in shot, is the likes of Daniel De Villiers, holds on to 4th position and looking to push that a little bit harder. We saw the consistency coming in with this car. Every step of the way, he's trying to make it work in his favor a little bit more. Sean Larrero is tailing behind, and Larrero taking the same idea in the Nissan GTR to try and get that little bit more gain in through the race and hope to stay at the front. So Sean Larrero will be pushing for the Pro-Am division to ensure he stays towards the sharp end of the field after some spectacular racing last season. Unfortunately, couldn't quite make it work. Daniel De Villiers trying to generate as much heat as he can into those tyres through 130R. Sees Bago Krobler go off in 130R, late on the brakes to try and make it stick, and now we'll be giving it a proper push lap to see if he can get into the top 3. The rest of our field start to slice their way through. Darren Thriller Miller out on circuit, continuing on his drive. But so far, Peterson, Duplessis hold out the top row. Jason Farmer hooks himself into 3rd place ahead of Daniel De Villiers. Now keep an eye on Jason Farmer because he was tailing the PWSR team last round. It didn't quite work out in his favor due to the track limits coming into play and the pit stops not quite working out for him, but still has an option to stay at the top. And going back in history, Suzuka has been one of his strongest circuits that we've seen some victories from. So hopefully he's hoping to get that all back into Frey. Ruan Heineke for the Griffin Sim Racing team continues on his drive. Everyone hoping to score as many points as possible in this 8-round championship. This is round 2, 4 minutes and 13 seconds to go, as many of the drivers starting to consider, can they get that hard push in qualifying, or are they going to just back it off, wait for the race to start and see where they can go? Well, for Duplessis at the moment, he's trying to give it everything he's got in the Tresso Temptor Racing Audi R8 Evo, and he's hoping to just beat out the likes of Peterson. But a 158.5 was his time. Peterson with a 158.0. It's going to be a close call if he can try and take 0.4 of a second out around the circuit, and that is insanely hard around Suzuka, because one misshift, one late break, and one moment can throw you down from half a second all the way down to a second quite easily. And the drivers do know they need to keep it all together. And 159 is going to be the race mark for the midfield of our grid. And we will have to see if that's going to continue, as a lot of drivers tapering off to the 201, 202s as it stands. Weather Johnson rounding out the pack at the moment, yet to set a time on the board. And he is continuously seeing how far he can move up through the order. He's got Christian Zetzman up ahead of him in 37th position. Savish Bazon lying in 36th. 38 cars set to start here tonight. Christoph Peterson looking to start in first as he continues his charge on. Duplessis, no answer as yet. Bago Krobler up 0.1 of a second. John Delfinko down at the bottom of the pack, as we do see Savish getting a little bit out of shape. In 19th position, John Delfinko, 0.2 up on his time. Keegan Bowen coming through the final corner, 0.1 up, and just loses the time. Couldn't quite get the rear to work with him, and unfortunately, no improvement in time. Jared McComb, who is fighting out there in the pro field and is looking to move his way up through the order. Riley Henning a little bit further down. It's got Conrad Martin, 0.4 of a second up on his time. Anton Lummers, currently 0.4 up on his time. Graham Kelly, 0.4 up on his time. So there's quite a few drivers looking to get that last little push. Daniel De Villiers and Darius being two of the drivers to do that. Both 0.1 up on their best lap time and trying to make it work with them. De Villiers hoping to get into second position at least, to be able to fight out into turn 1 and still keep in for the run, as the Nissan GTR has got tremendous straight line power. It's 0.3 up on his time. Can he carry it through? 158.9 was his best, and is he going to be coming across a line and setting an even better one? A 158.6 up into third, knocking Jason Farmer down, but not quite the 158.5 he needs to beat the likes of Duplessis as it stands. Darius leading out the Pro-Ams in 5th place, 0.3 up on his time as he tries to give it that one hard push. Herman Whitmer pulls into the pits. Alan Patterson pulls into the pits. Bago Krobler, 0.3 up on his time as he makes his way through the S's. It's consistency. It's all about carrying the momentum through and throttle control for Team Wolf at the moment, as our drivers looking to push that little bit harder. De Villiers trying to make his way up into the hairpin, 0.1 up. This will give him the advantage to start in second place if there is no improvement from Duplessis. Darius, 0.3 up as he wants to get ahead of Jason Farmer. The two of them have battled out in the past across multiple league racing, across multiple endurances, and he does come up towards the line in that logistical nightmare racing. BMW, no improvement in terms of starting position. Did improve his time with a 158.9 as he came through. As the rest of the field still trying to put their last little bit on the board. Bagel Crawler, Jared McComb, last of those runners to try get a time on the board that they are currently up on all their deltas. However, the field pulling into the pits and saying, right, that's us. We're going to now think about what we need to do for the next 1 hour and 20 minutes worth of racing. 2 mandatory pit stops where you have to put at least 1 liter in the car for the pit stop to count. And it's going to be all eyes to the front for Grobler. 0.8 of a second is a proper drive from him. Trying to bring it down into the 158s to be into the top 5. Will it be enough as he comes across the line and does shoot up into 4th place and will be starting side by side with Daniel de Villiers and staring at the back of Duplessis, who will be trying to run away from him. Duplessis and Bago Grobler, former teammates back in Hybrid Academy, now meeting up with each other yet again on the circuit. This time round, 2 different teams and a Drivers' Championship on the line. Jared McComb coming across the line, unable to improve on his last time out, but will be starting in that top 10 and smiling all the way through. Riley Henning is making his way through along with Jean Van Zyl. Likes of Jan Van Zyl will be making his way up towards the top. So, drivers, ready, set, go here at the wonderful, wonderful Suzuka. Once again, a massive welcome to everyone to Suzuka as we get ready for round 2 of the EG Evolve RaceFace.Pro GT3 Championship Season 24. And we are in for an absolute treat. Drivers from across the globe coming and joining in for the series. Some of the fastest drivers in the world and in South Africa looking to square up yet again for maximizing their points. And on a circuit that 63 years ago, 1962, opened up and became a legendary circuit that, as I said, has made drivers, it's broken drivers, it has made both famous and infamy in the world of motorsport, and has supplied some of the best racing action from across all formulas of racing. It's one of the very few circuits in the world that has had all forms of racing, from drifting to drag racing, to circuit racing, to motorcycles, to karting. It has had everything, including its short circuit, which has gone and made for some rather interesting action in lower divisions, especially in formula classes, and at one point of its life, going and having cars like our GT500s that race out in the real world, going and battling around the circuit on a very, very tight 1.5 kilometer run. But that being said, let's take a look down to our grid as drivers start to do the last little bit of work to their cars, hoping to get themselves sorted out before we get underway under racing conditions. And it's absolutely great to see. Now, we've got a couple of interesting people joining in, and we've also got Willie Zetzman coming and joining in and keeping an eye on the likes of Ludwig Zetzman and Christian Zetzman. It's fantastic to go and see a father re-watching his sons. And I remember the Zetzmans when they first came in, and Willie was one of the just fans watching out there and going and saying all the way out from Limpopo and watching. So it's absolutely wonderful to have the Zetzman family joining in, much like the Bakum family going and keeping an eye on everyone going out there. Absolutely wonderful. And once again, a massive, massive welcome to you all as our drivers underway for the start of the race. We're in for an absolute treat for round 2 of the EG Evolve RaceFace.Pro GT3 Championship. Christoph Peterson looks to start out in first place with the likes of Quan Duplessis in second. Daniel De Villiers in third, followed by Bago Krobler in fourth. Jason Farmer and Darius look to battle it out, fifth and sixth, with Herman Wepner and Alan Patterson going and fighting their way through. Ruud Heineke and Jay Raccoon round out our top 10, with Chris Heineke and Kieran Patterson starting behind his dad this time round. Will be eyeing out what he needs to do to find his way back for a podium. Jaco Nadir and Sean Loureiro running in 14th, and Carl Williams followed by Martin Rotenbach, Luke Naines, Henry Platt, Chris Biermeister, Michael Schultz, John Delfinco, along with Rian van der Race, Gerard Pretorius, Anton Lubbers, Gavin Scruton, along with Keegan Bowen, Jackie Alberts, Darren Miller, Riley Henning, Conrad Martin, Volquez Minion, along with Graham Kelly, Wayler Johnson, Jan van Zale, and we've got Benjamin Till, Ludwig Zetzman, Christian Zetzman, and Savesh Basson rounding out the field. Now, if I remember correctly, the Zetzmans also did not only some real-world motorsports, but also in the world of sim racing, did iRacing and ACC. They competed as a brother team in the early endurance races. I'm going back a good couple of years, and maybe Willie can go and tell me if I'm wrong or right, or if I'm just suffering from dementia. But with that being said, let's keep an eye on all the action happening here tonight. We did have Reginald Mutaleni saying, unfortunately, not going to be making it to the grid here tonight, which is rather unfortunate. But good to have you going and keeping an eye on, Reg, as one of our streamers here in South Africa and a driver that pretty much goes on any sim, drives anything, and gives it his absolute all, but always wonders where the gap disappears. You can keep an eye all the way from work, and it's absolutely wonderful to have him as well. Antonio Gamble going and celebrating the Griffin Sim Racing team, and Jason Farmer, my boy, that has gone all over the world, and I don't think there is a league that I can think offhand that is not run across that saying, with every single commentator going and standing there with a smile on their face every time they have to say it, because you have to say it with enthusiasm and with absolute pride. As our drivers make their way to 130R, quick movements on the steering wheel for the likes of Daniel De Villiers as he tries to get a bit of pace underneath him, giving it a little bit of a gap as he's going to accelerate, then stand on the anchors. This is going to allow the brakes to heat up quite significantly on a very cold circuit and look to power his way through. We've got Werner Skuman going and supporting Pandacity as they will be getting out. Werner, we've been missing you guys. We saw Henry and Fleming not on the circuit last night, so Pandacity missing out on LMU, but here on the grid for tonight for our ACC round 2, as all eyes to the front. Duplessis and Peterson look to start out as they make their way to the line. Who's going to have the jump as they get ready to go? 70 kilometers an hour, 1 hour, 20 minutes worth of racing, and we are ready to go under starters orders. Lights on, lights on, lights on. And away we go racing as it's Bago Krobler with a good jump off the line. He gets cut off by De Villiers, who looks to try and lock in that inside line. Christoph Peterson gets ahead of Duplessis into turn 1. Runs out a bit wide, trying to force the pass to happen. And Duplessis slots into second. Feeling the pressure from De Villiers down into third. Jason Farmer trying to cut his way through, as we did see a little bit further back. Kieran Patterson is dealing with the likes of Chris Heineke, Jaco Nadir, and Sean Loureiro also staying in for the fight as it's clean towards the top. No major incidents that I can physically see, but we'll keep an eye on our timing board as all the drivers continue to make their way through. De Villiers look towards the inside line, couldn't quite get the pass on Duplessis. Jason Farmer going and losing a little bit of time as he tries to get some heat to the tires. Bago Krobler slots in behind. Kieran Patterson ran out a little bit wide further back, now trying to find his way through. Loureiro having a good time, but take a look at Darius, who is in for the fight here. Currently leading out the Pro-Am field in 6th position. Our timing tower just running a little bit out of sync at the moment. And I know that Tim will be trying to get that one up and going. It's always fun to see our drivers having a bit of an interesting time out there. Carl Williams, Chris Beermister, Henry Platt, all trying to fight it out. Martin Rosenbach and John Delfinko going to make his way through. There is Gavin Screwdon for the team. Try Hard Racing looking to go on the inside of Michael Schultz. Not able to get the drive just as yet, but he is going to attempt to go through the gears that little bit quicker. And he has got Jackie Alberts trying to close up as well. Side by side they go. 130R is going to be very tricky to go side by side, even for the best of the drivers. But Schutzen tried his luck. Couldn't quite get it hooked in. And we do see the likes of Darren Miller runs out wide. Jackie Alberts trying to go around the outside, nearly putting his nose in to make it 3 wide. Michael Schultz a little bit slower on the way through. Duplessis down the order. Now side by side with Jason Farmer. And suddenly Bago Krobler and Darius having a go at one another as well as Darius looks to the inside of Bago Krobler as they make their way through turn 1. Jason Farmer not able to get the pass on Duplessis as Peterson opens up the distance. Krobler missing the apexes because Darius keeps putting his nose in. Has allowed Alan Patterson, Herman Whipner and Ruben Heineke to rejoin into the battle to fight it out for that top 5. Whipner trying to go on the inside. He's got it hooked in. Can he get the pass sorted out? He does, but has he got the drive to keep it going as he took a very, very wide line? Alan Patterson couldn't quite take that fight to him. He defends against Heineke, having to just watch out as Darius and Whipner currently fight out for first and second in the Pro-Am division. Patterson deals with the likes of Ruben Heineke, the Griffin Sim Racing team. Oh, and that's contact. Jared McComb, contact into the rear, into the side, and also puts a squeeze on Kieran Patterson, who nearly got a little bit of a knock there. Side by side again, and oh, there's another bit of contact from Heineke as he leant onto Jared. Kieran goes out into the dirt. He had to back off a throttle, seeing all this going on. And that has allowed Sean Loureiro to get back into the fight. Jared McComb a little bit further back. Chris Heineke and Jaco Nudia continue on the charge. We've also got Mordrake Claessens going and joining us in the virtual grandstand. It's good to see him. A BMW driver in LMU, and I didn't quite see him last night. So, Mordrake, I hope you're still racing with us, and hope you can get back out on circuit. But it's Sean Loureiro losing the time as Jarrett looks up on the inside. Chris Heineke closes up the distance and now looks to take the fight as we keep an eye on this little train. Loureiro, Bakum, Chris Heineke, Jaco Nudia continue on their charge, trying to figure out what is going to be the big plan here. How can they get the drive and where can they improve, as it's a big look for Heineke, trying to see if that inside line is going to work for him. As we do have a spinner, and that is Weller Johnson, unfortunately getting out of shape. Keegan Bowen, Conrad Martin and Kelly into the pits for their first round of pit stops. Johnson, Platt, Gerard Pretorius and Benjamin Till, not off to the greatest of starts, will be trying to keep themselves going. Let's quickly go back in time here. This is Benjamin Till on a yellow flag, and he's got some damage to the front of his car. Oh, jingos, that car just decided it was going to go one way and one way only. That was towards the wall, and he was able to get it going yet again. But man, oh man, whatever went on, it stepped out and decided that it wanted to go and expressly check the wall and see if it's sturdy. As we do see Jason Farmer onto the back of Duplessis at the moment. The 194 not quite having the drive he needs to keep going. And there was actually contact with the 194 a little bit earlier on of Duplessis. And this was next to the likes of Daniel de Villiers into 130R. Both of them having a bit of a moment. And here comes Jason Farmer, slingshots around. Late on the brakes, Duplessis gets caught out. Farmer leans on him a little bit to just try and get the drive, and they were elbow to elbow on the way through, but not too much pain for both drivers. Now, once again, 130R coming into play. Jason Farmer looked for the inside, trying to bait a move. Couldn't quite get that pass to work out for him, and we'll have to wait that little bit more as Kieran Patterson clears Ruben Heineke on their way through, and Sean Loureiro hoping to carry on the momentum. We do get a little bit of contact coming in from Jackie Alberts and Gavin Screwton at the moment, with the likes of Michael Schultz trying to close up the distance between them as well. So under braking, each of the drivers trying to see what's going to work, and that is Christian Zetzman, who's landed up with a bit of a problem. The 101 into the wall. right at 130R, and you can see it all started going wrong a little bit further back as he was trying to make his way through. Had the RDR8, Team Tryhard Racing, trying to get past, a little bit of late braking on both, a little bit of contact, and unfortunately that's all she wrote as he speared into the wall, taking significant damage to the nose of his car, but now into the pits was able to keep going. So interesting times coming into play for each of our drivers. Everyone trying to push that a little bit harder. And you can see Duplessis starting to take a little bit of strain as now the rear stepping out. Jason Farmer, as we jump on board, got a lot of run on him. Will look towards the outside, switches to the inside through the hairpin. No room to go. No room to get past as Duplessis parked it on the apex, ensuring that the likes of Farmer could not get past. Killed the drive. Jason Farmer also not too impressed with that stopping on the apex, but it was very, very neatly done to slow the Audi down enough to still make the corner, to stop any advantage. But now, can he keep the run down towards the 130R as now Jason Farmer has got the slipstream, who looks to try and gain just on the coattails behind them. Bago Hrobler looking to push out a little bit harder as this is a rearward shot through 130R. Jason Farmer takes a tighter line as both make their way through, wanting to be cautious of track limits can be easily exceeded here in the world of Suzuka, and will suffer a drive-through penalty after 3 warnings. Kieran Patterson getting ahead of Alan Patterson as the 2 PWSR cars run 9 and 10 respectively, looking to move their way up through the order. Lucan Haynes and Carl Williams continue on their drive as Ruan Heineke pulls into pit lane to get himself sorted out. Graham for the race into the likes of 19th, and he fights out against Jackie Alberts at the moment. The big Mercedes seeing the likes of the Mustang closing up at a rate of knots. Christian Zetsman lying the field to come through before rejoining safely, and that was after his pit stop and repair work done to the car. Henry Platt continues on his drive in the Lexus, hoping to go that little bit longer in the race after an early pit stop and a short stop, 5.8 seconds in the box, hoping for the undercut to come into play. Ground for the race, Jackie Alberts still continue to brawl with one another. Gavin Truton along with Michael Schultz and Darren Miller keeping close to one another as the field now starts to open up, as everyone's starting to figure out what is the drive, what do they need to do to make this race work in their favor. How hard can they actually push these cars to ensure they stay at the top, or are they going to now concentrate on tires? The circuit is cold, but it is a very heavy circuit on tire degradation, and that is also going to balance things out. The earlier stops does make things a little bit easier, as you can now push a little bit closer to that 45-minute mark, the halfway mark in this race, to ensure you stand in for a victory. However, it does mean that you need to keep the pace. Anton Lummers and Folks Minion keeping themselves going, the Rapid Recon Racing team, hoping to get ahead of the Treehouse Works Racing team. Anton Lummers unfortunately wasn't able to race LMU last night, but went and supported Conrad Martin, now looking to have some fun. And after a bit of frustration of waiting out in the grandstands, he is now trying to make the climb back up through the order and chase down the likes of Darren Miller, who's got Michael Schultz ahead of him for company. Chris Heineke into the pits, and a drive-through penalty, the first one coming out, and that is for Darius for track limits exceeded here at Suzuka. And unfortunately, taking him out of the running here, not going to be an easy one. We do have a bit of contact early on, and this is Anton Lummers, who was fighting against Folks Minion. So Minion tried to go hold a defensive middle line, understeers out wide, brings the car back, but unfortunately Anton Lummers had understeer on his McLaren, and it was a little bit of contact, nothing too bad, but both having to keep themselves going. Oh, big problems coming in. Jason Farmer and Duplessis into the dirt. Farmer and Duplessis into the dirt, and that is them dropping down the order as Duplessis battling to get that car back under racing. But let's quickly take a look at what happened. Farmer sits behind Duplessis through the S's, all looking fine. who made the mistake as Farmer touches the dirt, trying to go for the inside. Du Plessis gets squirrely, and there's a contact. So Du Plessis got squirrely, and Farmer saw the gap, wait for it, it closed on him, and that was all she wrote, as both drivers drop way down the order, landing up with Du Plessis in 22nd place. Jason Farmer not going to be too impressed, as he's also fallen way out of favor. Jackie Albert's getting some yellow flags, and this is through Spoon, sees Du Plessis come on by, and does rejoin onto the circuit on the inside. He's going to unfortunately have no drive to deal with, and will be looking at the race a little bit further on, saying, what do I need to do to make this work out in my favor? So, as our drivers continue on the hard charge, try and see what's going to work for them. Jason Farmer into pit lane, does allow the field to come through. Darius continuing on his drive, hasn't gone for that drive through as yet. He's got 3 laps to serve it, otherwise it will be a disqualification coming in from the race stewards of ACC, and that is not what you want to have, especially when you're trying to back up your teammate into that top 3. But also leading out the likes of the Pro-Am means that he has to open up a clear gap to Herman Whitner at the moment for the Corsica. And Herman is having a great drive, just applying that pressure, waiting for the opportunity. He knows that he hasn't got to push too hard. He's got a bit of space to the likes of Sean Loureiro, who is sitting over 5 seconds back, but he knows that Darius will have to pull in the pits to serve that drive through. So first place will be on the cards for him for the Pro-Am division. Alan Patterson and Jared fighting it out, with Jared looked towards the inside line, couldn't quite get the pass on Alan. The fastest ACC commentator here at RaceFace.Pro. He's having an absolute blast out on the circuit. And Alan hoping to get a little bit closer to Sean Loureiro, but just having his mirrors absolutely full of the Team Wolf Lamborghini of Jared as it stands, who runs out a little bit wide through Spoon, trying to bring the car back. Kieran Patterson losing a lot of drive through Spoon, suddenly has Alan all over the back of him. And this is where life gets a bit interesting, because Alan Patterson's got some tremendous drive. He's going to keep pushing, but is he going to go for the pass? He's going to lift a little to allow Kieran to continue on. Kieran not going to be losing too much time through 130R, but that's backed Alan up into Jared and Yaku Nadir joining him for the run. Darius now into pit lane, serve his drive through, allows Herman to retake that first place. Jared goes to the inside line and has Yaku Nadir around the outside, looking to clear on by. Oh, contact! As Jared moved across, he caught Yaku, who catches a wonderful slide. Well done to Yaku for holding it all together. And I actually want to go on board and just take a look at the slide. This is on board inside his helmet, and we've got a beautiful helmet cab here, but take a look. It's got the drive on Jared, who loses out that little bit of straight line. And here's a slight move across onto the race line, puts him onto the dirt, and it's cross arms for the Mustang driver. Holds it in third gear, down into second, but still able to keep himself going, and still had to keep a solid drive. We do get reports at the 55 having a bit of a problem with the number 7, and this is Carl Williams up against Lucan Haynes ahead of him. So Lucan Haynes out there in the Honda having a bit of a contact with the 55, and ultimately Kyle landed up losing down the order, and this was it. Oh, just unfortunately the gap closed up on him. Major damage to the car. He tried to sneak in on the inside, unfortunately didn't quite work in for his time, and unfortunately landed up in the wall. Now needing some serious repair work on the car, and aiming to get back into pit lane to try and get that car sorted out. Gavin Scruton dealing with Michael Schultz at the moment. Darren Miller and round for the race, hoping to close up the distance between them. Schultz, who has been at a good run the last little while, now a little bit further down from where he wants it to be, 15th overall, and needs to push to try and close the distance to the pro drivers ahead. Darren Miller sliding around, trying to keep up the pace behind him. And we do see Rian van der Race taking a lot of dirt. Unfortunately, couldn't slow the car down for Cassio Corner. And just visiting exactly where the likes of Senna landed up into the dirt. And where a championship was thrown into disarray. A little bit of sightseeing coming in from Van der Race. And unfortunately, losing a lot of time. Schultz keeps on the back of Gavin as they push that little bit harder. Duplessis now into pit lane to try and do a bit of an undercut. Carl Williams comes into pit lane as well for a repair work done to his car after that monster impact he had against the wall. Darren Miller hopes to climb into the top 15 at the moment, just following Schultz through, seeing that Gavin has got a lot of pressure on the back of him. And remember, Miller and Schultz are currently fighting for not only on-track position, but for class position. So a pass here is desperately needed by both. And the likes of Darius, who's trying to make his climb back up through the order after the drive-through, sees Savesh Basson side by side with him, and that Ferrari yielding not at all as it's contact between the two, and it is Darius who went around the outside, had just nowhere to go. Unfortunately, Basson understeering, that was just gonna end up in tears. Not many can go side by side, and especially on cold circuit with these tires now semi-warm. It just didn't quite go to plan for Darius, and the race that looked to go brilliantly just starts to fall downhill a little bit more each and every step of the way as we start getting a little bit closer to 20 minutes completed of this race. And there's still tons and tons of racing out on circuit. But it's Christoph Peterson who leads out the pack for overall and for the pros. He's got Daniel De Villiers and Bagel Krobler trying to close up time. And we have got reports, Rian van der Race losing it. And this is through the 130R. Got it out of shape and now falls down the order into 22nd. Riley Henning looks a deep pass, trying to go around Benjamin Till, who is a little bit further down. He is a blue flag. He does allow Riley to come on by, but that also just favored Van der Race to get into the mix as well. And Riley still trying to drive with that little bit of damage on the car. He tried to bait a move into turn one, and he does. And Van der Race says, thank you very much. He's going to go for it. Forces Riley out a bit wide. And that Mercedes just looking to put the hammer down. Goes out wide. Riley comes back underneath him. Now stuck on the outside. Going to try go for the inside line. Both get it wrong. Huge contact between Riley and Van der Race. Van der Race into the wall. Riley with significant damage as well after that impact. But Van der Race taking more of the hit. And unfortunately is turned round. And it looks like he's trying to get that car re-fired up. And I wonder if the marshals are going to say rather tow back to pits and see if he can get it repaired and back out on circuit. Side by side they were going, and unfortunately only one could survive. Kieran Patterson with Sean Loureiro keeping the pressure on him for the top 5 as Alan Patterson deals with Jared and Lucan Haynes behind him, and Jaco Nadir in the Mustang rounds out our top 10 at the moment, holds on to 4th of our Pro-Ams. Herman Whitner, Sean Loureiro and Lucan Haynes lead out our Pro-Am division. Peterson, De Villiers and Krobler go and hold on for 1st, 2nd and 3rd as they make their way through. And take a look here as Rian van der Race just stopped in the dirt and no repair work to the car. So something has gone on, and unfortunately hasn't been even able to tow the car back to the pits. That is going to be going and hurting quite a bit as Benjamin Till trying to keep up the momentum. Rian van der Race dropping down the order after that problem a little bit early on. Looks like he managed to tow the car back, but unfortunately will be hurting in terms of positions and possibly a retirement. And it is unfortunately for Van der Race, and I don't want to see it like that. He's been on a stellar wicket for a long time, and if the Kramadoulis racing team can hear me, please do get that Mercedes back out on track. I know it's a little bit of a nightmare situation to just have a rough race, but you got to see it through to the end. If you see that green, you got to see the checkered. It's something I repeat over and over and over, but the reasons for it is you don't know how the race is going to go. You don't know how you're going to get that climb up through the order. We saw it with the likes of LMU last night with S24. We've seen it over the years here at RaceFace.Pro. You just got to keep your nose in. You got to put your nose to the grindstone. Keep forcing your way up through the order and not giving up. That's one of the things that both Werner Skuman, Mordrake Claessens, even Reginald Mutoleni knows all too well. Tennis Puerta as well. Kieran Patterson spun around at the 130R and into the pit. So Patterson, unfortunately, not having an easy time, and that was possibly contact. The 1-2-3 car of Kieran has got Loureiro, but where did the Porsche step out? This is into 130R, and just lost the rear, and unfortunately Loureiro just clipping on the way through, and that unfortunately has Kieran out of the race, and it looks like he's going to be stopping that car. A rather unfortunate situation for Kieran Patterson, but Sean Loureiro dives into the pits, not only to just go and get some repair work on the car, but will be completing his first pit stop of the race. That may help him out a little bit later. They always say you got to be careful of the race. You've always got to be careful of your pit stops, because sometimes it can work out in your favor and sometimes it can bite you. Gavin Shooten also going and having that same idea. Dives into pit lane. Jarrett onto the back of Allen, who just saw Kieran stopped off. Luke Haynes dealing with Jaco Nordia. Martin Rotenbach also trying to close up a little bit of time as well as they find their way and that little bit of pace. Darius, who has done a drive-through penalty, will be considering his options as well as Pro-Am of how can he keep the climb moving forward. Chris Heineke, first of those that have completed their pit stop. Now has Henry Platt on the inside, and side by side they go. Henry Platt gets the pass on the Griffin Sim Racing team and now needs to keep up the drive. The Lexus, absolutely brutal around the circuit. But one driver we haven't spoken much about is Jason Farmer, who's completed all his pit stops. Oh, this is Funsale turned out of shape and back to pit. So Funsale having a nightmare of a run in the 23 and possibly contact with the 44. So this is Funsale through the 130R. And what on earth happened to him? Did the rear step out? As he took too much curb, too much dirt, has the rear step out and sliding across, major impact up against the wall, and that's all she wrote for him. Sean Loureiro sitting in pit lane, trying to complete his second pit stop by the looks of it, and this is going to be a bit of an interesting play as he's going to be taking the same approach as the likes of Jason Farmer. Patterson and Jared McComb continue their fight on. De Villiers getting a little bit out of shape into the dirt, but Herman Whitner holding on to fourth position, leads out the Pro-Ams and will be smiling ear to ear at the moment as Luke Haynes down in seconds. Got Jaco Nadir all over the back of him for company. Peterson, De Villiers and Krobler hold on to first, second and third for our Pro Division as it's 55 minutes to go here for the EG Evolve RaceFace.Pro ACC GT3 Championship. And still lots of time on the board. Savesh Prasad pulls into pit lane to complete his first pit stop, and he's hoping to get ahead of Henry Platt. Remember, leads out those that have put in their first stop and looking to try and make it work out in their favor. Sean Loureiro in the 23, however, is still parked in pit lane. Something tells me there's a little bit more than just doing a pit stop, and this is him. I think he's got damage on this car. Does drop wheels down, does get going, and does he stop on circuit? Does look like it was an easy way out. Duplessis behind him, but Loureiro is stopped big time and might be a retirement out of the race, and not quite a pit stop that he wanted to have at that point. So not a nice thing for the 23. As we do see Jared come through, and here is possibly where it all went wrong for Loureiro, as he was trying to keep it all together. Gets in through the S's, did the Nissan GTR snap, just understeered out, went towards the dirt, and that was all she wrote, unfortunately for him, parking the car. And we have got reports for the 17 Jared McCombie. Now, we did see him going out of shape a little bit early on as we cut to him and Alan Patterson before we went to see what happened. This is it. The rear steps out, tries to bring it back. Lucan Haynes up on the inside on the 07 in contact with both of them. Twisted around in 130R. Bit of impact into the wall. And that was Jared, unfortunately, falling out of the order. And now we'll be trying to figure out what is his next move of the race. 34 cars remain on. And I do want to point out that Christian Zetman, who was first into the wall, major impact, is still going out and pushing. He's still driving, giving everything he can. Benjamin Till as well. And despite the incidents, still keep up the drive and are in a race with one another. So good to see them out there and looking to move their way through the order. If you see the green, you guys see the checkered, especially when Dad's watching, because Dad did not have any quitters in the family. The Zetzman family will look to try and keep it going as Jason Farmer fights it out side by side with Savish Basson. Right behind him, Carl Williams trying to make up the time as Jason Farmer sinks it in on the inside. He gets a pass done. That's now opened the door for Carl Williams to get it on by. And it is Graham Kelly with a stop-go 30-second penalty for speeding in pit lane. Unfortunately, coming off the button a little bit too early has now cost him time. And a stop-go 30-second after he's completed all his pit stops is going to impact his race severely at the moment. So great to see drivers still pushing themselves that little bit more, still trying to figure out what is the big plan here, as we do see the likes of Savish Basson slowing up. He does have the likes of Bago Krobler come on by. He's going to utilize that slipstream a little bit more to try and move up through the order. As side-by-side moment comes in, Darren Miller and Michael Schultz brawling as they went through Spoon. Now it's into 130R. Schultz trying to keep at the toe, runs out a little bit wide. And it's nose to tails. The headlights come on as the sun sets even further here at Suzuka. We're heading towards the night. And by the time we get to the final 20 minutes of this race, we are going to see pitch black darkness where your brake markers faded away and you're going to have to think about where you were out on circuit. Muscle Mary comes into play. Minion getting a pass as Anton Lammers dives into pit lane and looking to complete his pit stop. Henry Platt is the marker for those that have completed their first stop, and Jason Farmer is the marker for those that have completed all their pit stops. Platt comes on by. Is he going to get ahead of Anton Lammers? And I do suspect he does with a clean pass. Ruben Heineke, Chris Heineke come through. So the Heineke family going and scoring big here at Suzuka. The two brothers continue on their charge as well. A little bit further back, Duplessis hangs on to the back of Conrad Martin, trying to maintain the drive. It has been a nightmare from starting out in the podium spots during qualifying and now a little bit further out of the running and looking to try and figure out what can he do to score the positions. How can he move back up in towards the top? And Duplessis, a former championship fighter, now trying to figure out where he can go. 10 seconds up the road from Daniel de Villiers is the leader of our race. Christoph Peterson trying to push that a little bit more. Daniel de Villiers in second place with Bagar Krobler holding on to third. Herman Whitner currently leads out our Pro-Am division with Jaco Nadir and Martin Rotenbach keeping each other company for second and third. They trying to close up the gap to Alan Patterson, who holds fifth overall and fourth in the Pro class. Trying to go that a little bit further up in the order. John Delfinco going and running out in ninth with Darren Miller trying to close the distance between them. Ludwig Zetzman having a stellar drive out there behind Minion. Looks to try and get on by. The team trial driver takes a little bit of curbing, a bit too much, as Jaco Nadir dives into pit lane. An interesting move coming in for the Pro-Am driver to look to do the undercut as he keeps an eye on Henry Platt. If he can get it right and get ahead of Henry Platt, means that he has an advantage over the rest of the Pro-Am field, and will be keeping an eye on Herman Whitner as they march on their way through. Darius, who served the drive-through, still needs both pit stops to be completed before he can go and think about racing through to the end. 34 cars remain. Graham Kelly in 34th with Christian Zetzman 33rd as they keep the power on, and drivers figuring out what can they do. And just to bring up Sean Loureiro going and having a chat to us, and it was for a technical problem of why he had to retire the car. I would actually like to get Loureiro in the box, come and have a chat to us to just kind of explain what happened, because it's rather unusual. We get to hear about all the technical difficulties coming in, as we do see Darren Miller and Michael Schultz continue their way through, and some side-by-side moments as they get past the Nissan GTR. And now Schultz looks to lean on the side of Darren Miller. So we'll try, see if we can get Sean Loureiro to come in and have a chat after a little bit of contact that, well, turned into a rather interesting situation. So it's up to you, Sean. But it will be nice to hear from the Griffin Sim Racing driver, especially after really putting in a good effort. Unfortunately, just not having Lady Luck smiling on you during the course of this race. Minion, Zetzman, and the likes of Darius continue their way on. And Darius not having the easy moment, trying to figure out how can he make up the time. Ludwig Zetzman out there in the Audi for Team Tryhard Racing will look to try and push himself out a little bit further in the order. Will be waiting for his opportunity. However, it is going to be Darius up on the inside. He gets the pass done and dusted through 130R. Did lean on Zetzman a little bit to try and get that pass sorted out. Martin Rotenbach for Team HSC holds up the pressure on Alan Patterson as they fight out for the top 5 overall. Rotenbach currently lying second in the Pro-Am field. Does not need to go for a hard push, as he's got Chris Biermeister from the Pandacity team 1.8 seconds behind him. So he's got a little bit of breathing room to play with here. But Chris Biermeister, who has been improving race after race, has gotten himself a little bit more to grips with the car and looking to try and move his way through the order. So Rotenbach just keeps that solid drive behind Patterson. Waits for his opportunity as he gets a good run coming out of the corner, and now gonna look up on the inside. Allen goes out a little bit wide to try and do an undercut underneath Rotenbach, but just couldn't get that drive to work out underneath him. Rotenbach up into 5th, and Patterson down into 6th as they continue on the race. Everyone trying to figure out what they can do. Now, it doesn't look like we're going to get Sean Loureiro for a comment, but we do have a bit of an idea of what happened to his car. So the last impact that he had, which spat him into the wall, landed up going and knocking the alignment out physically on his wheelbase. That landed up with him not being able to drive the car, and we'll have to reset the alignment as well. A very, very strange happening here in the world of sim racing, but not too, well, is uncommon, but does happen from time to time. And it's going to be Herman Wepner currently lying in 4th place. Pulls into the pits. Martin Rotenbach will take over the lead for our Pro-Am division. And it does look like Chris Biermeister going to follow suit as well as they keep pushing on. So Christoph Peterson, Daniel De Villiers, and Bago Krobler hold on to 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of the Pro division. Martin Rotenbach has managed to open up a significant distance to the rest of the Pro-Ams as Lucan Haynes and Minion now take over the likes of 2nd and 3rd in the Pro-Am division, but they have not done their stop. Chris Biermeister and Herman Wepner have done their first stop. The question is, can they get out in clear air to focus on the drive? One of the drivers that pitted early on in this race and seems to be working out in his favor, Henry Platt, trying to go that little bit more and push his way up through the order. He's going to be focusing on a great drive at the moment as Herman Wepner comes out of pit lane and rejoins the field behind Jaco Nudia, who has now gone past with that 38 Mustang. Conrad Martin losing out a position to Duplessis. Sees that Chris Biermeister just coming out of pit lane. He's going to return onto the racing line into the apex, and that is going to have Duplessis going out wide. Duplessis properly had to struggle to get that car back in check. Biermeister nearly into the rear wheel arch, and that has allowed Conrad Martin to get back into the fray. Duplessis had to go right on the marbles there to keep ahead of the Pandacity machine, but lands up into the dirt, and that's just cost him time. Conrad gets past Chris Biermeister and continues on the drive to march his way up through the order. So it is Farmer, Alberts, Henning and Till that have completed all their pit stops and racing till the very end, taking the gambit here to see with that earlier pit stop, that undercut, will it work out in his favor? Darius against Fulker's Minion. At the moment, the Rapid Recon Racing BMW now needs to try and deal with the logistical nightmare racing machine of Darius, who hopes to keep the pressure on to push that little bit harder. And it is going to be Minion into the pits. Fulker's Minion now into the pits, and Luke 8 dives into pit lane to get themselves sorted out. Ludwig Sitzman is going to hang on to the back of Darius as they continue on the drive, holding into the top 10 overall, seeing if they can go a little bit longer in the race to try and go for the victory here in the Pro-Am division. The field's starting to open up. Everyone's starting to consider their pit stops and who is going to be moving their way through. Lucanans, Ruin Heineke, all diving into the pits as well. Gerald Pretorius and Keegan Bowen going to be more than happy to get that pass down and dusted. Jakun Nadir is going to keep on the drive. Herman Wepner as well. And Gavin Shooter continues on the drive. Michael Schultz, unfortunately, not going to be smiling as he gets a drive-through penalty for track limits exceeded. Pushing that little bit harder, putting the wheel off into the dirt, costing him some time. And now a drive-through penalty added on top of it is going to be hurting him throughout this race. And he will have to think about what is going to be the next strategy to move his way up through the order. Everyone hoping to get the march. Everyone hoping to push that a little bit more. And who is going to be able to carry the drive on the way through? Shoots it a little bit further down the order. Keeps an eye on Herman Wepner, who currently wants to try get the drive. Gerald Pretorius leads out those in the Pro-Am division that have completed their first pit stop of the race. And looking to try to stretch it out. Henry Platt is those that have in Pro that have completed their first pit stop of the race. And they're currently lying in 12th and 13th, respectively. John Dolfinko pulls into the pits. Darren Miller and Michael Schultz comes into pit lane. Is Michael Schultz going to be for the drive-through, or is it going to be for the mandatory pit stop? I do suspect this is for the drive-through, which is going to hurt out his time. Jared Coombe comes on by, moves up into 6th position. Darius hoping to carry that momentum just a little bit more as we continue on the race for victory here in round 2 of the EG Evolved GT3 Championship out on ACC. We're back under racing action. Jakun Nadir now trying to defend against Herman Wepner as we take a look on board on the Mustang. Battling tooth and nail as he tried to defend against Herman Wepner at the moment, who's been making life rather difficult. Both fighting out in the Pro-Am division and looking to see what they can do. And taking a look over to our virtual grandstands because they're getting to see the absolute pit stops happening on. Christoph Peterson and Daniel de Villiers diving into the pits. Beggar Roblo, Martin Rotenbach gonna go that little bit further in the race. Jean-Ray Burta going and saying, good evening, folks. Who's cooking? Well, I can tell you every single one of these drivers are cooking because it is a multitude of different pit stop strategies coming into play that you can't even tell who's going to have the advantage in this, because it is just mad. Christoph Peterson leaves pit lane, is now into 5th position. He did have a 10-second gap to the likes of Daniel de Villiers on the run into the pits, and now looks to try and go that little bit further. But Jason Farmer down in 21st position. If he gets a clear run, may be able to help close out the distance, get into that top 3. But it's Christoph Peterson who currently has the fastest lap time of the race. And this is where I love to play the game of who has climbed and who has fallen. A little bit of snakes and ladders, one might say. Ludwig Zetzman is one that has definitely found the ladder, because I want to point out, Ludwig started out in 36th position. This Audi over here from 36th hasn't pitted, but has climbed 29 positions since the start of the race. Has done a phenomenal job. He does see Darius fighting out ahead and is taking a look at a certain Nissan GTR that is a blue flag, but will be looking to try and climb on by. But with those are the last of the runners that are still out on circuit who are trying to get going, it is going to be the likes of Duplessis, who has definitely ran across the snake and has dropped down as he's into pit lane. 26 positions and more on the way through. So it's just turning into a race and a half. And everyone trying to push that little bit more. So Martin Rotenbach takes the lead of the race as he marches his way through. Alan Patterson going and trying to also push that little bit more. He allows Jackie Alberts to unlap himself in the run. Alan Patterson up into 2nd, trying to open up the distance. 9 seconds ahead of Christoph Peterson, as now he looks to try and keep going. But do my eyes deceive me? No, they don't. Ladies and gentlemen, we talk about seeing a green to checkered, a driver that literally hit the wall so hard, his wheelbase absolutely had a panic attack and got completely wrong in alignment. Sean Loureiro rejoins the circuit. Sean Loureiro back out on track, and we'll see it through to the end. I mean, that you got to take your hat off to. A driver that was, well, completely out of it is now going to see the fight all the way through. And I take my hat off to every single driver that looks to push that little bit more, to dig that little bit deeper in and try to see it through to the end. Luke Hinanes running out a bit wide, very, very wide on the exit. Hazard and Heineke trying to look into Casio corner. Late braking, trying to look on the inside, the outside. Little bit of a knock between the two. And oh, that is a big impact for Luke Hinanes and Ruben Heineke. Lucan managing to keep it out of the wall. Heineke keeping it out of the wall, but Lucan dives into pit lane. I don't think that's when he wanted to get into the pits, but it was decided after the contact that, hey, buddy, you're going in. Whether you like it or not, you're going to have a difficult time out here as the lights come ablaze. The track starts to darken, and it is getting a little bit more difficult out there for our drivers as a nose-to-tail battle. Chris Biermester sinks it in a little bit deep on Conrad Martin, trying to fight his way through, loses that little bit of time, but it is getting wild out there. On board with Chris Biermester, you can really see the brake markers fading into the darkness as you rely back on muscle memory, and this is also where it gets a little bit more tricky for drivers, as it's easier to get tunnel vision, to focus on the brake lights of your competitor versus where you need to stop. And if they make a mistake, well, you're going to replicate it, if not have a worst case scenario. Martin Rodenbach into the pits. Oh, big impact for Chris Biermester as the Ferrari gripped up and unfortunately through the hairpin in Spoon, landed up with a bit of a contact and just across the nose of Jared McComb. He had to take a bit of an evasive maneuver there. So our drivers continuing on the momentum, and take a look. Jason Farmer said if he had a clear circuit, he is in the running for a top 5. Well, currently in 14th position, has got a bit of clear room to play with as he tries to close up to Conrad Martin. 20 2 laps in when he crosses the line. Phenomenal stuff from every single one of our drivers. Trying to get everything they can. Rotenbach fighting against Darren Miller. Looking left, looking right. Trying to see where can he get on by. And really not having an easy time as we take a look at Miller. Keeping a very defensive line to ensure he locks the part off Martin Rotenbach. And behind them, Ludwig Zetzman starting to close up the distance. Quick flash of lights coming in from Martin as he tries to get in the head of Miller, who's just folded those mirrors in. He knows, keep your racing line, hold your drive, as Ludwig Zetzman getting closer and closer is going to be a little bit more of a problem for Martin to deal with. And as he continues on the drive, it's going to be into Spoon. Oh, very late on the brakes, sinks it in a little too deep, goes out wide. You can see how the desperation started to get in. He wants to clear Darren Miller. Even though they're 2 different classes, Rotenbach wants to close the distance to Herman Whitner and Gerald Pretorius to at least be in full podium running. Ludwig Zetzman is a Pro-Am driver that will look to try and get on by. Miller gets a clean through 130R, and it is Mon Rotenbach that's slowed down a little bit more into Casio corner. Late on the brakes, trying to get the pass through. Gerald Pretorius now into pit lane. We'll be seeing what's going to happen, and this is Rotenbach taking the advantage. He dives into the pits. Ludwig Zetzman says, not a chance. I'm going to go and cut that off, and you are going to now see me through and through. Alan Patterson loses out the lead to Christoph Peterson, as Patterson still needs to do his first mandatory pit stop along with Darius, who's already done a drive-through. So these 2 cars are the only runners that need to still do their mandatory pit stop. Patterson hoping to go that little bit further into the race. Remember, he is fighting out for the top 5 in the championship, and by running that little bit longer has an advantage possibly to try and keep ahead of most of the pack in the Pro division. Darius, leading out the Pro-Am, will look to try and keep the momentum through as well, as our drivers continue on trying to figure out what is the plan here. How far are they willing to go? John Delfinko coming out of the pits, and Jaco Nadir getting a drive-through penalty for track limits exceeded. Savesh Basson pulling into the pits to get his final pit stop done. Ludwig Zetzman coming out of pit lane, rejoins down the order, and will be focusing on his drive as he does see Alan come on by. He will now look in the rearview mirror. That is Duplessis all over the back of him. Duplessis a lap down, cuts his way through. Not too much of a problem there. The team try-hard driver. Sorry, this was actually for position, Duplessis and Ludwig Zetzman, but he does know where to take the fight. Darius into pit lane to serve his first pit stop of the race. 30 minutes to go. Basson coming out of pit lane in the Ferrari 296 to rejoin with the circuit. Darius is going to be losing out the lead of the race for the Pro-Am as Herman Whitner comes on by. And we do see Sean Larera opening up the gap. He allows the cars to come through as Christoph Peterson gets caught behind Jackie Elbers, gets the pass done and dusted, and looks to try and extend that gap a little bit further. He's keeping an eye on Daniel De Villiers at the moment, who is trying to close up the distance. And Bego Krobler 11 seconds behind, trying for Team Wolf to go for that third place spot. Will be pushing every step of the way. A quick flash of lights to the likes of Graham Kelly in 31st position in that Nissan GTR, trying to say, listen buddy, you need to just move out of the way just a little bit. Do me a favor here, as the rules say you don't have to jump out the way, but you need to be predictable and you're not allowed to fight the overtake. So Vish Prasad, unfortunately, a stop-go 30-second penalty for speeding in pit lane is going to be costing him a bit of time and dropping into the 30s in this race, and that unfortunately not quite going into his line. Riley Henning in the 777 in 33rd position continues on his drive, trying to close up some time to the likes of Christian Zetzman as they continue on. Jaco Nadir now serving his drive-through penalty the Mustang driver, unfortunately getting the big spoon over the hands, and will be thinking this was not his race this time by. Had a good bit of pace underneath him. However, the track limits became a little bit more abusive and took him out of the run. Chris Heineke dealing with Martin Rotenbach at the moment. Henry Platt all over the back of Chris Bebenstead, with Ruud Heineke joining in for the fray. 28 minutes to go. Everyone trying to figure out what is the plan here. So far, Alan Patterson still yet to do his first pit stop of the race, with the likes of Christoph Peterson and Daniel de Villiers. Oh, is Henry Platt up on the inside of Chris Bebenstead. Big look, big pass, and definitely lean on for that pass to happen, as Darius in pit lane still trying to get himself sorted out, as he will be leaving that pit box out towards 6th place and a little bit further down as Darren Miller gets past him. Chris Bebenstead losing up the drive through the likes of 130R. Ruud Heineke trying to come back at him, seeing where can he try and get that clear pass. And this is Darius, actually stopped very, very long in the box and is off the jack. So something tells me that Darius has got a problem. Darius has got a problem, and it went into a bit of an issue as we going and getting some further words from Alchemy. Steering went off, tried to pit and got my force feedback, tried to get the force feedback back. Unfortunately, nothing. And that is unfortunately going to be it for Darius in this race with no force feedback. It's going to be a very, very difficult time. Actually, no, he does. Darius is back out on circuit, and that is him. So he did all these pit stops. That was Lucanades. Apologies there. Lucanades coming in and giving us a bit of thought process of what happened to him. And it's oh man, I mean, it's unfortunate to have the force feedback just disappearing out underneath you. And oh, that's gut wrenching. Sorry. I mean, to lose out under technical difficulty, it just becomes a little bit more of an issue, and it becomes a little bit tricky to drive these cars without having that force feedback. It's like driving on ice, that uncertainty of what's happening underneath you. I am going to chuck in a little bit of a curveball there to Mr. Lucan. If you take a gentle drive, keep an eye on the lights, and just gently make your way around the circuit, you might not be in for a top running position, but you'll still score points. So, despite the problem, a full shutdown on the PC and a full restart might kick it back into gear to get that force feedback back in for the race. So a possible a proper turn off, turn on, but a full system shutdown versus a wheelbase on off might be the key to get it up and going yet again. Don't ask me how I know that. It happens. Even in some other sims. John Delfinco getting the pass on Waylor Johnson. Clears on by. But we would like to see Lucanades come across the line under his own steam. Especially since we see the green. Go see through to check it. Try do that. Let's see if we can get him out on the circuit. And let's see if we can get that lovely little car back out to score some points in the race. Waylor Johnson still needing to go and pull into the pits to try and get himself for his final stop. The likes of Folks Minion needing to get his final stop. Chris Beerminster, Anton Lammers as well. Jared Becum in 9th position. Conrad Martin, Darren Miller, Herman Whitner, Bagel Krobler, Daniel de Villiers, Alan Patterson, and Christoph Peterson all still trying to do everything they can and trying to give that little bit more of a run. And once again, I'm looking over to the grandstands, and I'm seeing something that I am going to call out. And I think I speak for all the petrol heads out there in the virtual grandstands for the EG Evolved RaceFace.Pro ACC GT3 Championship. I speak for all the sim racers out there. Lucanades, You practice hard. You were in for the podium. Yes, I agree. It was a difficult run. You practiced hard, but you didn't practice to not see the checkered flag. You didn't practice and put in the effort to not see it through to the end. You didn't put your time out on the circuit fighting with the car, fighting for that top spot to not see it through to the end. And you did not put in the time and effort practicing to go and just see all the racing fans that are supporting you out on the virtual grandstands to just go and see you sit in the pits with arms crossed, helmet down on the ground, and lip on the ground. I refuse to see that happen. And I think everyone out there in the virtual grandstands, Antonio Gamrel, Jean-Ray Buerta, Reginald Mutalini, and so much more will go and agree with me on this, that we have to see that car come through to the end. So, it might be a bit of a run. It might be a full switch down, full backup, and try to get that force feedback going. You will get points for crossing the line, but I think even more than that, you will get the respect of every single driver out there, because there is drivers that couldn't make tonight, that couldn't see it to the beginning of the race, that sat and watched. So, if you agree with me out in the virtual grandstands that you want to see Luke and Haynes restart that car to get back out on the circuit, I want to see you guys going and putting in there all the flames for Mr. Haynes to see him through to the end. I want to see it, and I think his entire team will also want that. So, the challenge is out, Lucan. Are you going to trip over your lip and sit in the pits, or are you going to get out there and see it through to the end and make that practice at least count for something instead of a DNF? As I repeat that to all drivers. Jared Pretorius, unfortunately, getting it wrong into the wall of the 72, trying to get up and going. And let's quickly take a look at this. In through Spoon as he tries to keep himself going. Not too easy. Gets the rear, starting to rotate a little bit more than planned. And there's the step. Unfortunately, there is the unforgiving wall of Suzuka taking the hit and unfortunately dropping him down. Now, I do want to point out, Sean Loureiro had to do a realignment of his steering wheel. He is laps out of this race, but is still circulating and will be pushing to get that little bit further in. He will be hoping to get going. And I do want to report, folks, because take a look who's sitting in the pits. Guess what car is coming back out onto the circuit? Guess who's going to see it through to the end? You've seen it. It is the Racing Snails himself. Lucan Haynes is going to try and see it through to the end. That's what we want to see. That is what we would love to see. As Darren Miller and Jared McComb fight it out door by door as they continue on. Jared trying to lean on Darren Miller as they launch their way through. Miller not giving up the fight. Will have their advantage into Spoon, and Jared trying to claw it back the whole way through. Absolutely tremendous. This is what I love to see. Drivers fighting to see it through and battling to get their cars to the line. If you've seen the green, you've got to see the checkered. That is the motto that we live by. That is the motto we love to see. And it's why I say our Pro and Pro-Am are some of the best in the world, because it's not because we're the fastest. It's not because we're the most consistent. But there's one thing that us as drivers here at RaceFace could say. We don't like to give up. We don't want to sit on the ground and mope. We want to keep going and push ourselves that little bit more. So Luke is going to be doing everything he can. I can see still in pit lane as he's trying to get that car going. The team are battling to get that car going. They want to see it through to the very end. Jared McComb into the pits. Now will try and make up some time. Chris Heineke keeps the pressure on Herman Whitner as they continue on. Anton Lummers will be going and leading out our Pro-Am division as it stands, with Chris Beermister tailing on behind. Both still needing to get themselves going. And folks, I want to see all the celebrations coming in, because out on circuit, Lucan Haynes, who threw in the towel, is back out and going and seeing it through to the end. Mad respect for the driver. That is what I would love to see. And you know what? You're not tripping on your lip, buddy. That is how we do it. 35 cars still continuing on, and despite the chips being down, will be battling through till the very end. It is Peterson in first, De Villiers in second, Patterson in third place. Our top three of our pros still needing to pit. Alan Patterson still needing to do 2 pit stops with 18 minutes left in this race. Bago Krobler needs to do his final stop of the race. Darren Miller needs to do the final stop of his race. Anton Lammers, Chris Beermister, and Minion, along with Waylor Johnson, still needing to get those final stops in to see it through to the end as they fight their way on. Michael Schultz dealing with Ludwig Zitzman at the moment, who's got Dad watching from the sidelines, cheering on, saying, come on, buddy, you can get this pass in. Michael Schultz, who has been out there for the Treehouse Works Racing, looking to step up that pace. He's served 2 drive-through penalties during the course of this race. He's 22nd, but is still maintaining a solid drive, trying to see it through to the end. Despite chips being down, he will be battling his way through the order. Look at his score points here, as every single one of these drivers are wearing their hearts on their sleeves here tonight for the last 17 minutes here at Suzuka for round 2 out in Japan. It is ice cold out there, folks, and I can tell you it is ice cold. I think you know about it as well, because it's 11 degrees track temperature and air temperature. It is icy out there, and just enough to start putting on a jacket, that's for certain. Anton Lummers and Chris Beermister fight their way through, and is nose to tail between the two of them. Anton Lummers, who currently leads out the Pro-Am division, has Chris Beermister on the back of him. But Herman Wepner out in the Ferrari, hanging on to the coattails, looks to try and fight for his way on by. Henry Platt closing up on Darren Miller. Remember, Platt was one of the earlier pit stops in this race. He does clear Darren Miller and continues on by. But it's Jason Farmer, who completed all his pit stops first, is now currently sitting in 5th position, waiting for the rest of the field. But he has got a bit of a problem with that. No, number 9 closing up on him. Slow drive for the likes of Riley Henning, trying to get himself going. Kyle Williams, unfortunately, a drive-through penalty for him, unfortunately, due to track limits exceeded. That's going to hurt him in this race, falling a little bit down the order, as we do see Riley Henning minding out all the way through 130R, allows Henry Platt to come on through, and there is likes of Miller. Aaron Heineke going to be trying to take that dive up on the inside, sees Miller just ahead of him. Now Heineke wants to close up the difference to Henry Platt, as we do see Miller once again going out and pushing that little bit more. He does not want to dive into the box as yet. He wants to try and see it through a little bit longer in this race. Anton Lummers takes the gamble. He dives into pit lane to try and keep himself going. Chris Beermister leads out the Pro-Am division with Herman Whitner on the back of him. Chris Heineke trying to look for the inside line, and just can he run it in a little bit deeper? He does, and forces Whitner out wide. Whitner trying to get that drive a little bit further in, but now Heineke up into 10th position. Herman Wepner down into 11th, but that is now a car distance between Chris Beermister and Herman at the moment, who now needs to step up the pace. Martin Rotenbach is on the back of him, 1.3 seconds back, and will be fighting out for the podium and looking for a first place here. As we got Ren Heineke on the inside of Miller. Oh, very close between the two of them. They just managed to make it through, and Miller had to battle it out on the dirt to keep it all in check, and what a save on his part. Jared McComb dealing with Anton Lummers, trying to move on up, but that is Gavin Shooten going and looking ahead of him, and the likes of Daniel De Villiers, our 2nd place car overall and in the pro class, trying to clear his way through the back markers, and Jared's not going to make life easy for him. The Team Wolf driver can hold his racing line, and that's only going to be able to help out Spa-Francorchamps just that little bit more. Try and close the distance. He does move out of the way just a little bit on that snap, and gotta say, well done to Jared. He saw that there was an opportunity, moved out of the way, decided, not quite my run at the moment. I'm going to focus on just keeping it all in check. Christoph Peterson runs 14.6 seconds ahead of Daniel De Villiers, who sliced his way through the traffic. Alan Patterson still giving it everything he's got, needing to do 2 mandatory pit stops. Spa-Francorchamps has got 1 more to go. Darren Miller and Chris Beermister need to get themselves sorted out. Well, speaking about Miller, he's into pit lane, serve his final pit stop of the race. Well, Chris Beermister is going to go that little bit more. Him just waiting and biding his time at the moment with Martin Rotenbach as well. Chris Heineke gaining a position. Will be more than happy as he's up into 9th and still continues to fight on for the Pro Division. Martin Rotenbach now closed up on Herman Whitner as the 2 of them are going to be battling out. Remember, when Chris pulls into the pits, these 2 will be fighting out for the podium. Both Herman and Martin do not want to lose out the drive. They want to keep themselves going every which way possible and will be thinking about the big plan here. How far are they willing to go in this race to see it through to the very end? Jared McComb still continues on as a stop go 30 seconds comes in for Darren Miller for speeding in pit lane. Stop go 30 seconds unfortunately will be for Miller as he exits pit lane. Frustration after a stellar drive is going to be throwing him even further down the order and not the way he wanted to have his race go, especially after such a stellar run. Jakob Nadir all over the back of Michael Schultz as they push themselves a little bit more, trying to figure out what is the plan here. Chris Beermister now having Chris Heineke looking on the inside. Couldn't quite get that pass on him as yet as they go around Spoon, nose to tail, still pushing on him. We do see a Ferrari off into the dirt. That's Riley Henning, who's got a drive-through penalty, unfortunately parked into the dirt and waits for the field to come through. Well done. Sorry, Riley did have a drive-through. No, he didn't have a drive-through, actually. I do apologize for that. Riley Henning, despite having a difficult race, still continues on the drive and moving forward, which is always great to see. Chris Beermister, however, big impact for the Penacity car. That is through 130R, and unfortunately will be hurting his chances of being into the top 3 in the Pro-Am division. Chris Beermister, the 74 car, into the wall. What on earth happened to him? As we go to our helicam and take a look at the Ferrari ahead, in through 130R, goes out wide. The rear just snaps. And that's all she wrote. Into the wall, reverses it back into the wall, trying to slow the car down. And unfortunately, with all that damage and now trying to just slow the car, comes to a stop on circuit, waits for the field to just come on by on the exit as he's trying to just turn the car into the pits. Schutten and Jared McComb had a little bit of a coming together as well. But Alan Patterson comes in for his first pit stop of the race with 10 minutes to go. He drove it all the way through. Minion out onto the circuit. Chris Beermister and Thriller Miller now coming in for his 32nd. That was an absolutely catastrophic run for Miller to get that stop go, but will be serving it and seeing Alan Patterson ahead of him. Our top 3 yet to do their final pit stop of the race. Weather Johnson down in 15th position, still needing to do his final stop of the race as we see Jochen Nadir keeps pressure on to Michael Schultz. Minion dealing with Conrad Martin at the moment as they 2 battle on that little bit further, trying to see what is going to be the big plan here. How far are they willing to go? And it is going to be the Addy Bombers of Conrad Martin, also the Treehouse Works Racing of Conrad Martin's now dealing with Rapid Recon Racing just ahead of him, trying to open up that distance a little bit more. Darius in 12th position, now trying to get the climb, sees Keegan Bowen ahead of him, holds on to currently 3rd place of the Pro-Am division. Now, I cannot stress that enough. Third place, despite 2 drive-throughs plus 2 pit stops. That is some serious driving on Darius's part to still maintain the third place, shooting down into 4th. But, well, Darius fights out against Keegan Bowen, who's not making life easier. So Ravenous Motorsport looking to keep the drive. That Aston Martin not yielding all too well to Darius, as he had to make him work for it. But Martin Rotenbach and Herman Whitner now within a second of one another. They got Chris Heineke a little bit further up the road, who's a Pro Division driver. Now, for Whitner, he's got to take his mind away from Chris Heineke and keep his eyes on the back, on his rearview mirrors of Martin Rotenbach nearing him, because Martin can go for that first place. But if these two make one mistake, they will lose that 12-second gap to Darius, who is on a stellar run at the moment and is doing 2 minutes 0.7 on his last lap, while Herman and Martin are doing 2:01 and 2:02 respectively. That is a huge pace difference between them that can possibly take them out of the running if they lose a little bit of drive. Duplessis all over the back of Anton Lummers as they continue on their drive, and Duplessis trying to make up some time. Remember, was up starting in the front row, and it all fell apart for the Audi driver, as now he claws his way up into 16th ahead of Anton Lummers. His next eye will be 5 seconds up the road. Jared McComb, who continues on his drive. Henry Platt and Ruan Heineke come on by as Alan Patterson gets a stop-go 30-second penalty for speeding in pit lane, and that is going to drop him out of the top 10. For a late stop in the race that looks like the gambit to try and stay into the top 5, got him into the top 10, unfortunately going and getting a stop-go 30-second penalty to try and contend with as well. Weller Johnson all over the back of Jackie Alberts, trying to push each other that a little bit more. Jackie Alberts in the Pro Division has got Johnson from the Pro-Am Division. Michael Schultz gets on by Anton Lummers up and around as the two teammates switching around continue their way through, and Luke Hernandez, who continues on to drive, lifts for everyone to come through. Remember, this is a driver that lost force feedback. Sean Loureiro had to do a complete realignment after a monster impact with the wall. Riley Heading has had a difficult time out of the race, but still continues his way through. Christian Setzman was one of the first drivers to hit the wall so hard that he needed major repair work on his car. He keeps on going to give it everything he's got, as we get reports, and that's Forks Minion losing out to Conrad Martin. He went to the skater through the wall, and that was out of turn 1 into turn 2. Not having the easiest time out there. Yaku Nadir all over the back of Anton Lummers as it's the final push. 5 minutes and 47 seconds to give it that last little bit to see it through to the end. Who has got enough in the tank to really get that final push, to give themselves that little bit more of a chase in through the running order, as Riley Henning up against the wall. Come on, Riley. There's 5 minutes left of this race. Try and get this car turned right. He's going to gently try and reverse it back. Keep an eye on the relative and keep an eye on the cars. Christian Zetzman will be continuing on his way through, as he just gently wants to keep it all in check as it stands. Patterson into the pits for his stop-go 30-second penalty. Now, 15 seconds separate Christoph Peterson and Daniel de Villiers. 4 minutes and 56 seconds to go. Both going and doing 2 minutes a lap. However, Daniel de Villiers managed to really dig in a little bit deeper. The lap prior, he was a sub 2 minute. Now, he's matching times with Peterson. Both drivers now need to figure out who's going to pull the trigger first to go for the victory. Herman Repner closing up to Chris Heineke as he continues on the drive. Martin Rotenbach in second place has an opportunity here to go for first place. He needs to claw back a 1.8 second deficit to Herman Wepner, who has currently got the likes of Chris Heidecker keeping him busy. The 777 coming on by, and this is Riley trying to see it through to the end. And it's wonderful to see a driver, despite the chips being down, is going to be battling his way through. Despite being a race to forget, he's going to keep on going. And the determination of the drivers here tonight that are still out on circuit, despite it all, looks to push that little bit more. Flasher lights coming through as Waylon Johnson and Jackie Alberts fought their way around. They got past the likes of Riley, heading Christian Zetman into the pits. Come on, Christian. Let it not be the end, as he's going to be boxing this lap. It looks like for fuel to do a quick splash and dash for the final 3 minutes of the race. Christian Zetman stopped in the box to try get himself sorted out for a splash and dash. Jackie Alberts and Waylon Johnson continue on their drive. Schultz up against Duplessis, heading into the 130R, and it's going to be nose to tail between the two of them. Christoph Peterson first to pull the trigger between himself and De Villiers with 2 minutes and 53 seconds to go. It's calling it a bit early there. Daniel De Villiers is going to go that little bit later into this race. It's going to be a tough time. Can he push that little bit more? Can he see it through to the end? Zetzman trying to get the car rolling and does get it going. He will be seeing it through to the end with 2 minutes to go. He will be trying to get that final push as his father looks on to both sons, the Zetzman brothers, seeing that both need to see it through to the end, especially in this absolutely hardcore race into the evening. And it is not going to be an easy run for any one of our drivers, as Christian Zetman will now look to rejoin and continue on the drive. De Villiers playing into the gambit here, trying to open up the distance. 20 seconds to the likes of Christoph Peterson. Can De Villiers do a short enough stop to get himself sorted to be able to continue on the drive? It is 32 seconds in and out through the pits when it was a full load. 31.8 was for Christoph Peterson. Can the Nissan GTR pull the gambit here to try and hold on to the lead of the race? Herman Wepner, Martin Rotenbach continue to battle on for first and second in the Pro-Am division. They're hoping to go that little bit further to push themselves like they can't do it anymore as they go on for the second last lap of the race. It is going to be all or nothing for these drivers. De Villiers will have to pit this lap to get himself sorted. 20-second deficit to Peterson. Dives into pit lane at a rate of knots, slows it down to 50 kilometers an hour. Peterson making his way through 130R will be now looking to retake the lead of the race. Bego Krobler, on the other hand, 35 seconds back, will not be catching De Villiers, as they will be coming on by. Peterson will take the lead on lap lead of the race yet again, with De Villiers still stopped in the box. Jakub Nodir seeing Peterson just ahead of him, and we are getting reports that leader is on the final lap to give it that one last push to the very end. That one last charge as Daniel De Villiers comes out of pit lane. Bego Krobler a little too far back to try and capitalize on it. Will be holding on to third for now. Michael Schultz fights against Duplessis for 15th position. The two of them nose to tail at the moment. 35 cars battling it out till the very, very end of this race. They're going to be seeing it through till the very, very end and hoping to battle their way into the history books for the second ever season by our title sponsor, EG Evolved, who gets to see the no quit. And despite hardware failure, despite skill failure, despite the conditions being an absolute pain to deal with, they will continue to claw their way in towards the race. Herman Wepner still trying to hold on to first in the Pro-Am division, with Martin Rotenbach in second. Christoph Peterson making his way through Spoon has opened up a 20-second gap to Daniel de Villiers, who ties in with Alan Patterson ahead of him as the two PWSR cars looking to carry on the run through. Bago Krobler 16 seconds back. Unfortunately, unless Daniel de Villiers has a problem, will not be getting that second place. But late on the brakes as Christoph Peterson makes his way through Cassio Corner. He's kept it together. It was a close call, but the logistical nightmare racing, Christoph Peterson will take the victory here for round 2 at Suzuka after a great run. And what a race it was. 40 laps of up and down moments. Christoph Peterson takes the win for the Pro Division. Daniel de Villiers will slot in behind Alan Patterson as both PWSR cars will come across the line. De Villiers in second place. Good haul of points for him as he comes across the line. Bago Krubler for Team Wolf will hold on to third place in the Pro Division. And what a drive on his part to see it through to the end. We also got the 777 Riley Henning will be seeing it through. But it is going to be Herman Wepner to battle it out against Martin Rotenbach. 1 second between them. 130R ahead of them. Will Martin be able to take that last minute dive on Wepner to try and take the win of this race? It's going to be close. Wepner's going to have to keep his foot in it through 130R. The car's got to stick. Can it stick as Martin Rotenbach tried his best? Couldn't quite get it to work out. 130R into Cassio Corner. Not able to close the distance. Herman Wepner will win the race in the Pro-Am division with Martin Rotenbach in second. Darius looking to take third place despite 2 drive-through penalties. He will carry the logistical nightmare racing BMW across the line and will be smiling ear to ear on that one. What a race it was, folks. And we did see the end with Luke Haines, Sean Larrea, Riley Henning, Christian Zetman, Graham Kelly, Chris Bubister, Shavish Basson, Kyle Williams, all getting to see it through to the end. Benjamin Till as well into 27th. Darren Miller as drivers fought their way through. What a race it was here at Suzuka that challenged the hearts and minds of our drivers. And round 2 going and opening up that championship even further as we get to see the guys having a phenomenal run. And already you can see likes of Rim van der Walt from Pandassi saying, way to go, Herman. Glad to see it. Willie Zetman saying, absolutely well done to his sons. And Luke Haines, buddy, pal, amigo, well done for seeing it through to the end. That's what we wanted to see. That's what the racing sales is all about. And that is what we've come to expect from you. Well done on seeing it through to the end. Daniel de Villiers going and putting himself out there into second place. Well done to him as well. And having no mic, no problem at all. Rain check, most certainly. But congratulations on that second place. And taking the gambit at the end. Well, you needed to try and throw something to make it work. And you managed to find out for the podium. And what a race, folks. What a race. You couldn't have written that out on a script because it just went from one to the next. And we got to see some stellar run all the way through to the line. And man, oh man, I am absolutely just in absolute shock and awe for our drivers that managed to put on such a spectacular display. We're going to try and get our drivers in for a bit of a chat and see if we can get them to give us a bit of thoughts on their race. We won't have the likes of Daniel de Villiers, but well done. Absolutely well done to the Nissan GTR driver. Well done to both our Pro and Pro-Ams as we take a look back at some of the highlights at the start of the race from a great runner, Christoph Peterson, pulling away from Duplessis, who landed up with a few little bits of issues in his race. Jason Farmer from 4th place took the earliest pit stop out of them all to complete all his pit stops in a gambit to try get onto the podium. He did manage to lock in that top 5 and kept himself running at the moment. So stellar run for all our drivers, and what a race it has been. So taking a look, it doesn't look like we're going to get anyone coming through to come and have a chat to us this evening, but a well done to all our racers. Christoph Peterson taking the victory, Daniel de Villiers in 2nd, and Bego Krobler taking 3rd. Actually, saying his name, he appears. We got Bego Krobler to come and have a chat to us. The Team Wolf driver taking 3rd place. Bego, what a drive on your part, but not an easy one. You really had to fight out for that 3rd place.
How's it, Stephen? Yeah, it was interesting at times. Some of the backmarker situations got a bit awkward, but yeah, happy with 3rd.
I mean, take us through this race, because we got to see a transition from day to night. We know that Suzuka, at the best of times, is not the easiest to contend with. What was your feel for the race, and what was your plan going into this race?
Our plan was kind of just to stay alive. This week has been a bit rough, so preparations and stuff didn't go according to plan. So when the race started, I said if I can stay alive and get sort of top 10, I'd be quite happy. So super chuffed with P3. But yeah, I think luckily once the transition started to happen from light to dark, it was pretty far into the race already. So for me, at least, you've kind of already settled into that rhythm, so it's not too difficult. But yeah, the only place really was I was starting to struggle to spot my braking point going into the last chicane. But other than that, it was actually okay.
Well, now the championship between yourself, Christoph Peterson, Daniel de Villiers, all in a bit of a turmoil, as you've now swapped around positions, except for Christoph Peterson, who took the overall victory. What's the game plan? Because it looks like this season is going to be a proper fight for the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And also, you can't count out like Jason Farmer, Kieran Patterson, Alan Patterson, Michael Schultz, all getting involved in the championship fight. And it looks to be neck and neck amongst you all.
Yeah, I think Chris is a bit out of reach at the moment with the amount of racing he does. So I think anybody will do well to catch him at this stage. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season, the battles between myself and Daniel. And then obviously Kieran, I know he's only been back a short while, so we can definitely expect to see him get quicker and quicker as the season goes on. And then same as well on our side with Kieran, who's also, I mean, we saw a glimpse of what he was capable of today in quali, but as well, not long that he's been back behind the wheel. So he will definitely also get faster and faster as the season goes on. So yeah, I think it's good at the moment, but I think it's going to get a lot better still.
Oh, absolutely wonderful stuff, and a good drive for you in the Team Wolf car. Before I let you go to enjoy the celebrations with the team, I know Jared Coombe was absolutely happy to go and see you guys fighting out in the top spot. Anything you would like to say to the sponsors, our title sponsor, EG Evolved, for being around with us, to the admins, the drivers, and most importantly, the absolutely amazing petrol heads out in the grandstands tonight that sat through the cold, sat through the dark, and cheered you on till the very end?
Yeah, just to Andres and the guys over at EG, just huge thanks for backing RaceFace for another season. It's really appreciated, and yeah, those guys are like what's the word I'm looking for? Like heaven sent in the sim community. So big ups to them, and then all the admins and everybody, and yourself, the streamers and everybody that keeps the show going. You guys are doing a phenomenal job, and everybody really appreciates each and every one of you. So keep going. We're almost at the end of the year. We can have a rest. And yeah, to Mr. Derek, he was on my POV stream as well. So I don't know how he manages to watch 2 streams and be vocal on both, but that's off to him. And to all the other supporters, all the other driver supporters and team supporters, you guys really do make it fun to go and rewatch the streams afterwards and put the live chat replay on and have a look at what was said and the encouragement all the drivers get. So top stuff. Please keep it up. And to all the drivers, it's really amazing to see the grids so full. So let's keep it going till the end of the season. If we can have the grids this full at the end of the season, then it's going to be amazing.
It's going to be a great one. Beggar Krobler taking third place in our pro division for Team Wolf. Absolutely wonderful to see the championship hopes still alive. And that being said, we're going to bring in our winners of the race. We're going to start off with our Pro-Am winner by a second across the line. Herman Whitner to come and have a chat to us. Herman, well done on a victory in the Pro-Am division, only by a second against Martin Rotenbach. How are you feeling? Because that last little bit seemed like it was on a knife edge for both of you.
Yeah, finally a win, Stephen. I just tried to stay in front of him. I took it careful and I saw he's coming, and just tried to keep it on the track and finish in front of him. Took it a bit safe.
Well, by taking it safe, you got it across the line. What was the game plan coming into this race? You're fourth in the championship and with sights on first, second, and third in the championship now in front of you as we move further into the season. What was your game plan coming here to Suzuka, and what's your game plan heading into round 3?
Coming into this one, I had some good practice laps this week, so I had some pace. Was hoping to qualify in the top 10 and did so. So once we started, keep it clean, find some space, just keep it on the track and stay on pace. Nothing special. Keep it a 50-50 split, bit halfway, do the 1 liter stop and keep it going.
Absolutely wonderful. And you know what? The support that was coming through as well seemed like they were keeping you going. Was there any info coming from the pits, or was it just a lot of cheering going and keeping you motivated to see it through to the end and fighting out for that top spot in the Pro-Am?
Well, it's Mino Bouwmeester is practicing, so we communicated. We know what happened, where and when on the track, yellow flags. So thanks to him for letting me know. Yeah, and I'll watch the replay now and see how it went. Didn't hear anything during the race, so was trying to concentrate on winning.
Well, I could tell you out here in the commentary box, we could hear the cheering, and it was absolutely amazing. With that being said, taking the victory, finally getting that win underneath your belt after quite some time in the world of sim racing. Anything you want to say to our title sponsor, EG Evolve, to our associate sponsors, to the admin out here at RaceFace.Pro, to the teams and drivers that you got to race against, to Martin Rotenbach, who you're now fighting out with the championship with. You've taken the victory from him, and he's leading the championship, so I'm sure with a bit of a rivalry starting to build there. But more importantly, to our amazing petrol heads out there in the virtual grandstands, that I'm sure as you were going lap after lap in the dark and in the cold, you could see them standing on their feet.
I'll go and look at the comments now. Thank you for everyone who cheered. Thank you for the sponsors. I think this is one of the best events on sim racing locally. And thank you for what you do. Thank you for commentating. It makes it lekker.
Well, when you got some good racing like yourself and Martin Rotenbach to the line, you couldn't help to get excited. 1 second separation at the end. One mistake could have swapped out the whole thing. Herman, congratulations on a win here at Suzuka in the Pro-Am division. What a run for Herman. And I mean, it's been a good long time coming for him finally to get that top spot on the podium. I remember seeing the driver when he was first starting out, was battling to get a lap done without spinning, and now walking away with a victory. Stellar job. Absolutely stellar job. Talking about stellar jobs, let's talk about a dominating victory yet again. Christoph Peterson, well done on a victory yet again. The start, you got the jump and managed to open up the gap. But how was it with qualifying being so close in the Pro Division?
Well, I mean, qualifying for me, again, was surprisingly not that close. But for me, it was all about the tire temps, the whole race. The race started in like 13 degrees or something, and that was still very good for the way I set my car up. But so I profited from that in the first stint. But I think at the start also no one had grip. Like I think Duplessis also oversteered a little bit when we were side by side, and that's why I got the jump in T1. But yeah, and in the second stint the tires just fell off, and I was just trying to nurse them a little bit.
Well, let's talk about this race, because despite you getting the jump at the start, midway through the race you were starting to carve your way through the grid, and it didn't look like it was getting any bit easier as the fights were getting more and more between each of the drivers, and as darkness fell. I mean, what happened? How was it to fight your way through the field? And considering you were getting chased down by the likes of Daniel de Villiers, where at the end it was down to the gambit of who's going to pit first.
I mean, at Suzuka it's never easy, neither to overtake for position or to overtake blue flags. Like the track is so tight and at the same time so fast in some areas that you always have to look out for yourself and maybe prioritize survival a little bit over time loss. And that's also what I did. I rather just waited until the blue flags moved by themselves in a safe spot, and didn't try to push myself through too much. And also the rare battles for position that I had were always like with pit stop with like different pit stop strategies and stuff, but they moved out of the way very quickly, so I think no one really wanted to fight with me, which I can understand. I would also not ruin my own race by fighting too much with a guy that's one pit stop down. So yeah, I think everything just went great for me. I have no complaints.
Well, it was a brilliant race and textbook to keep it out on the circuit. But before I let you go, is there anything you want to say to our title sponsor, EG Evolved, along with our associate sponsors, but also to the drivers and teams that were out on the circuit, and the bit of rivalry that's starting to happen between yourself, Daniel de Villiers, and Beggar Krobler in this race, but also to our absolute petrol heads out there in the grandstands that braved the cold. I saw a guy in shorts and t-shirts in 11 degrees in the dark here in Japan. I mean, that already tells you that our fans are just keeping an eye on the racing action, cheering you through to the end. I mean, even the support coming in for the logistical nightmare racing team from the likes of Sim Experience saying go LNR throughout the entire race.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I can give LLR their first RaceFace title this season. That's my prime goal. So thanks to everyone for watching, even in these cold temps. I know it won't be easy the whole season if you're freezing in every race, but I'm sure everyone will show up all the time. And yeah, of course, thanks to the sponsors. It's amazing that this league has so many sponsors and that there's such a good title sponsor. Yeah, nothing more to say. Thanks to everyone.
Absolutely wonderful stuff, and well done on the victory yet again, Christoph Peterson taking the victory here in the Pro Division and overall, and good luck with your racing later this week, because as far as I believe, you're racing in 3 different series, so good luck with all the racing, and hopefully you get a little bit of a break at least sometime.
Yeah, next to AOR is Suzuka, so I didn't have to practice twice. It's fine, but thank you.
Absolutely.
And see you.
Absolutely great stuff. Christoph Peterson coming in and having a bit of a chat to us after his victory, going and having a stellar run out there. But folks, it has been an incredible race here at Suzuka, and round 2 now done and dusted. Round 3 happening this next week on November 13th as we head to Hungaroring for some side-by-side battles around one of the most technical circuits to fight nose to tail with, and where you got to be patient. Hungaroring is going to be something interesting for every single one of our drivers. But coming up next week Tuesday, we have got our iRacing Prototype Challenge that is out on circuit again. LMP2s and hypercars to battle it out in our iRacing series, and it's wonderful to have them out there. If you are interested, entries are still open. Go and be a part of the show. Go and have some fun in some amazing prototypes. That also being said, LMU next week, Wednesday, starting from 8 o'clock, so please go and take a look. It's going to be incredible as our GD3, LMP3, and our hypercars will be fighting out for the top positions. Who's going to get the victory after we saw Martin, likes of Jacobs, who had cooked his motor, still fighting out for third place against likes of Brandon Kruger, who was in for the run in his 9X8, but Crystals took the victory this week, and then on Thursday, we come towards our round 3 in the EG Evolve RaceFace.Pro GT3 Championship Season 24. But, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's been an absolute pleasure and a massive shout out to our sponsors, EG Evolved, SBR, Rhino Utility, Simulator Cave, and Virtual Motorheads for being a part of the show, for getting us across the line day in and day out. And it's absolutely wonderful to have them on board with the series. A massive shout out to our drivers' teams for all the hard work that they put out on the circuit, to the admin team that are working frantically behind the scenes, and you don't get to see it, but it's mad in behind the scenes, and it's always wonderful to see them. Also, that being said, a massive, massive well done to everyone on a stellar race. But most importantly, and we cannot forget, you, the absolute petrol heads, the legends out there in the virtual grandstands, and to that one guy wearing a t-shirt and shorts in 11 degrees, I saw you with your Crocs. Those neon green looked amazing. But thank you so much for joining us this evening, and thank you for being with us. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification icon. Plenty of racing to come, and we're looking forward to some great events happening here at RaceFace.Pro. So keep an eye on the social media, keep an eye on SimGrid, join us on Discord to keep an eye on all the conversations, and join in as well with all the fun that is happening. And later this month, we do have a charity race coming up in iRacing. So if you are interested in being a part of a charity race, you're more than welcome to join us and keep an eye on that SimGrid when entries open. And from likes of Jim, who was our flag marshal, massive thank you to him. To Tim, our cameraman, who worked frantically in the dark and looking extremely cold. Don't worry, we'll get you sorted out. I brought sushi. And myself, Stephen Koenig from THT Productions, would like to say thank you very much. And like always, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, everybody.